Welcome back to the channel and another video on the Mk5 GTi. You saw in the last video we dropped in that we're going to be fitting this Mk6 R front end over here. So we'll show you that later on in the video. For now, we are going to be concentrating on getting some of this wiring back into the engine bay and down the inner wings where it should be. And then we will have a look at getting these subframes all swapped over. And we'll get the coilovers back in and it on its wheels before we finish off by trial fitting the Mk6 front end on. Let's get to work. Before we swing all of this wiring back into place, we need to get the engine mount back in because the wiring goes over the top. So I'm going to get this fresh PB mount put in place, done up, and then we can start retracing all of the wiring back to where it should be. That's all of the wiring swung back out the way, clipped into place. That engine mount is looking pretty in there. So we've got it all where it should be. See the engine harness just sitting down out the way there. Now that it's all cleaned up, got it back in. Just means that it's not all hanging over the edge, stopping us putting the wings back in, and we can also get to these strut top bolts a bit easier. So now that's all done, we shall turn our attention into getting this subframe done, swapping all of these bits over. We hit a bit of an issue stripping that subframe down. A couple of the bolts were seized in there and have snapped off the T30 that I was trying to undo them with. So I'm going to have to sort something out. So we're going to turn our attention onto getting this front end on. So this is the Mk6 front end. So we've got the slam panel. It's slightly damaged, as you can see here, but it's the right shape. It's not going to affect anything, and we can just straighten that out once it's all bolted on there. There's a second-hand bonnet. There is some bubbling you can see on there, so we'll probably end up stripping that whole bonnet right back. Then we've got the main piece there, the R bumper, which will look really nice. All the little brackets, headlight brackets, bumper brackets, little headlight to slam brackets, and then the wing brackets, which are different from the Mk5 ones. So the first thing that we are going to have to do is this piece here needs a bit of modifying. So while we haven't got anything on, we'll do that now. What ends up, so this bracket goes across this bit here, bolts on to the slam panel, and then this would go along to here. So there should be another hole here, and this piece doesn't need to be here. So I've got some measurements that I've taken off of a Mk6. And we'll work to those measurements and drill and add in another hole there, and then we can start bolting some of the bits on. Let's get to work. And that's both sides of those all modified. They've been cut back, the hole drilled in the correct place. It is slightly at the wrong angle, so it's probably going to need a bit of tweaking, but this should allow us to trial fit everything on and at least be able to bolt these in place where they need to go. This one here is a little bit bent, so we're just going to have to tap that straight before we trial everything on. Next up, I'm going to just stick the bonnet on because I'm on my own, so it's going to be easier than when the front panel is in. It seems a bit backwards, but at least I can just get in, get it bolted on, and then try and stick it on the hydraulic stay so it's just up out the way. There we have it. The Mk6 front end is on the Mk5. So you can see it was a fairly straightforward job, not too difficult, and looking great with that R bumper on there as well. It completely changes the shape of the front end, looks amazing. I'm not sure whether we're going to end up keeping this grille. I don't know. What do you think? You think we should change it up for a GTi one, so it's got the honeycomb in? Leave a comment below and let us know what you think. I think the GTi one might sort of look a bit better overall on here. It's all just bolted on at the moment, hasn't been adjusted, so you can see the gaps aren't quite right, but all the headlights are on their brackets, bumpers are just kind of loosely clipped in. It's all looking good, but as I say, it does need some adjustment, so we will get that done, but I'm going to get it back on its wheels and then get it all adjusted up once it's on the floor. I've done a couple of things just off camera. So speaking of the wheels, I've taken the tyres off of the original Monzas and I've just put them on these so that I can get the car put back on the coilovers, lower it down, make all the adjustments that I want. We're probably going to end up rolling these front arches, but I just want to make sure everything all lines up nicely when I end up having to do the modifications to get it all to line up. And also have sorted this subframe out. There was a couple of bolts that I thought were giving me some trouble, but turns out that they weren't actually holding the steering rack in. It was literally just stuck on the dowels, so all of this is out, all now off and loose, and can go onto the new subframe. So that's what we're going to do next. So let's get back to work. That is the front subframe back in. So the next job that we're going to do is strip these original hubs and shocks down. We're going to take the brakes off because they're going to be painted, so it'll just make it a bit easier to get back in again. And then we're going to put together the new front coilovers and get everything back on and in the car. And there she is, back on the ground for the first time. Well happy with how that's turned out. She's back down on the Stance Proline Coilovers. They're wound pretty much all the way down, but obviously there's no engine or anything in the front, so it will sit a bit lower than that once it's all done. Off camera I also just tweaked about and adjusted this front end slightly so the gaps are a bit better than they were. It still needs a little bit, but we've got a lot of work to do on this front yet, and I'll show you that in a minute. The rear is sitting really nice in that rear arch. Looking good there. There's a little bit of negative camber on it as it's gone down. I think we're probably just going to add a little bit more negative camber and maybe a slight roll of this arch, see if we can get it down a bit more and get some nice clearance on there. As you can see, we've got the other rear wheel on the front. Originally had the 8 or 8.5s, can't remember what they are now, on the front, which is what's on this side. But you can see it just gets a little bit lost in that Mk6 arch, so I think we're either going to have to buy another pair of 9s to make this a square setup, or some different wheels. We'll have a little think as it goes on about what to do, but I think this sort of size and offset works really nicely. These are 18x9 ET40, and it fits in nicely, both front and rear. So you can see the main issue that you have when putting this Mk6 front end on. Obviously we had to do the adjustments to the bracket here, but everything else is just bolted on, and although it looks good and everything lines up, you can see it is a nice gap on that door. When you look at it from this angle is where you realise the difference. So that is where the shape of the Mk6 door is completely different and has this quite strong defined swage line here. So in the next video, our solution to that is going to be cutting a section out of this Mk6 wing and welding in a section of the Mk5 wing so that it all fits up perfectly, lines up along here, is all nice and smooth, looks like it should without having all of the misalignment here. So join us next time and that's what we'll be doing. Don't forget to like and subscribe and turn that notification bell on so you don't miss out on any of the upcoming videos. Thanks again and join us next time.